Everyone, myself Vaibhav. In today's session of Visual Jforex, we will be continuing to work with the indicator named Absolute Price Oscillator APO. So now let us head to the Visual Jforex board, which has been developed by the Dukascopy Bank SA, and on which we have developed this setup so far. In a prior session, I had done this instrument subscription where the default instrument is going to be Euro USD, and then the position amount was defined at 0. I also got these APO blocks of the hourly time frame with different shift, that is the lookback period 1 and 3 respectively. Otherwise, all other parameters are the same. These are for doing comparison only. And to look at the price volatility, we are also looking at the cluster of last 4 hourly candles. And for that, these get historical candles and loop viewer is being used. And to look at the immediate price action just prior to the execution of the trade, these hourly candle will come handy. And to define the exact entry and exit point, we will be using these 10 seconds candles. So now we have to add the other calculations which we need for the execution of the trade. So I will give you the brief idea on this chart of the Euro USD where the APO has been plotted with the hourly time frame, and as I had explained to you, for any trade to be initiated we need the change in momentum. Either it should cross from being bearish to bullish, that is from below 0 to above 0, or it should cross from above 0 to below 0. So the momentum should be shifting, and only during the first 2 hours of this trend change we will look for the initiation of the trade. And in today's session we will be mainly focusing on the buy side, and for that we want the good enough momentum, and for that, as I said, we want the momentum to be shifting from bearish to bullish. So we will want the last hourly closing value for the APO to be above 0, and the APO value 3 hours back. We will be looking at the shift with the lookback period of 3. So we will have 2 hours to execute the buy trade. Otherwise, if we use the shift value of 2, only 1 hour will be there for us. So instead of that, we will have the flexibility of waiting out for 2 hours, and then it will be all about the price action. We need good enough momentum for that. For last candle cluster will be used, and we will be looking at the lowest price and the highest price of that last 4 candles, and the difference between the lowest and the highest should be more than 20 pips. So one condition will need to be defined for that, and also last hourly candle should have closed with gains. Its closing price should be above the opening price, and also it should have closed with considerable gains from the lowest point. So we will have one more condition, that last hourly candle close should be above the lowest point by at least 15 pips. So we will have to define that also. And instead of going for a market open, we will be placing the order closer to the lowest point. So I think 7-8 pips above the lowest point should be good enough. So we will define these parameters. So let us now go back to the Visual Jforex board, where first thing first we will have to define 3 values, one of 20 pips, one of 15 pips, and another of 7 pips. And for that we are going to use the calculation expression blocks. And here I will add the default instrument pip size and in all these three blocks we will need this, and then simply multiply the pip size by desired value. Where we need 20 pips, we will create a new variable with value of 20. So this will be high low difference requirement 20. Okay, and to get 20 pips we have to do a1 into a2. Minimum high low difference. Then comes another one. Here the closing value should be above the lowest point, so low difference, and this will be 15 pips. Again a1 into a2, and this will be and here this will be for the execution of the trade, and this will be actually the buy price. So this will help us define the buy price, not exactly the buy price for the time being. We will create this variable as well right now only. This will be buy difference requirement of 7 pips. So here a1 into a2, and this will be okay. So we have created these three values, 15, 20 pips, 15 pips, and 7 pips respectively. Now we will have to look at the actual price difference, and for that we have to carry out further calculations. So for that I will take two more calculation blocks. Okay, now we have to look at the volatility. For that we will be using these values from the loop, and we will have to take the HCV's highest and the lowest value, and for that we have to look at this HCV candle high and deduct the low. So we will have the actual difference a1 minus a2. Okay, and this will be actual high low difference, and then we also want the closing value for last hourly candle to be above 20 pips from 15 pips from the low. So for that we have to take candle 17's closing value and deduct the HCV candle low. So this will be a1 minus a2. This will be actual closing difference. Alright, so here we have calculated these values which we are going to use in the buy side, and these calculations of peak size, this will be also useful while defining the sell side, whereas these two calculations are only required for the buy side. Now we will start adding the if blocks which need to be in place for the execution of the buy trade. But before that, we'll take multiple action. For the time being, I am joining this, but later on we will remove it again and disconnect it and connect it back. So I will leave out some space here just in case we have to add further blocks. Okay, now we will start adding these if else conditions. So for the buy trade to happen, we need the APA value for last hour to be above 0. Okay, will be first input greater than second input, whereas the APO value for the third candle from the present should be below 0. So this time first input less than second input. All right, then we look at the price action, and for that we have defined certain requirements where we want the good enough price difference between the highest and the lowest price. For that we will be using this actual difference and compare it with minimum requirement. First input here also greater than second input. So and then we want the closing difference for last hourly candle to be more than 15 pips from the lowest value of last 4 hours. So for that also we have to look at this and define first input greater than second input, and here we also want last hourly candle close to be above its opening price. That means there was good enough buying momentum, and for that we are going to use the candle 17s opening and closing prices, and the close should be above the open price. Okay, then comes the moment of defining the exact execution point, and for that we will be utilizing this 10 seconds candle. Whenever price starts to rise above the last hourly candle close, we want the trade to be initiated, and for that we will need these candle 17's closing values and compare it with candle 18 and candle 19's closing values. Candle 18's close should be above it, and here also close should be above. So first input greater than and first input greater than, and candle 19's close should have been below it. So for that we are going to need this first input to be less than second input, and then comes the execution order execution block. For that we will have to look at trading blocks, and here it is going to be pending open, not market open, and it will be a limit order as it will be placed below the market price. We need first input less than second input, and for this we also have to define the entry point, which is going to be 7 pips from the low price. First we will place this blocks, and then we will carry out that calculation as well. So here we need buy limit price to be defined, and that is simply going to be 7 pips above the lowest point. For that we will have to carry out one more calculation. So here I will disconnect this. Candle 17 candle close. Alright, and for that we need the lowest point of the cluster and add to it the 7 pips, or another way will be to deduct from the last tick price. Both ways it should work fine. So here minimum buy difference, okay, and this will be A1 plus A2, and this will be by execution price. Okay, then we also have to define other parameters of this block. So coming to these parameters, default instrument, Euro USD, trade amount, you have to decide as per the equity of the account. Slippage 2 pips should be good enough. Stop loss and take profit, we will go with the fixed price, fixed value of the combination 10 and 20. Okay, and order validity we will define in next session, as we are looking at the 2-hour order execution window. I think 1 hour or maybe 1.5 hour order validity should be good enough, which we will define in next session. So that's it from my side for today's session. I hope you have been able to understand the logic behind the development of these buy side setup for the algorithm involving the APO, absolute price oscillator. Thank you all for joining in. See you next time. Till then, goodbye.